You're watching Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Things are getting very interesting for your Seattle Seahawks as we head towards the home stretch with the postseason on the horizon. How do the Seahawks stack up with their chances to win the division and make the playoffs? We'll talk about that. Also, some other rumors that you guys have when it comes to potential changes for this team. We'll go over all of that in just a matter of moments. Before we do, folks, want to make sure not only you're subscribed, but you're part of the Noti Gang. You may be saying to yourself, man, I would love to be a part of your next mailbag segment, Tyler. Well, you're in luck. We do these mailbag segments every Wednesday, and if you subscribe and turn on notifications, you'll be the first to know when we have new content here on the channel. That way you can stay up to date and you can chime in on our next mailbag segment. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, join the Noti Gang. If you're part of that Noti Gang, spam Noti Gang in the comment section. We'll get started with today's show. We begin with a $5 super chat from Ian. He says, with the new starters at center, right guard, and right tackle, do you think we'll see a resurgence in the run game? Well, I'll say this, Ian. It can't get any worse than what it was prior. We already know that we've seen upgrades at center and right tackle. Let's start there for a moment, all right? Olu is better than Connor Williams. That's a fact. The right tackle position, Abraham Lucas is by far better than any of the other options, from George Fant to Stone Forsythe to Mike Jarrell. Big improvement there. The right guard spot remains to be seen. Anthony Bradford was not playing that great, but Christian Haynes hasn't looked that great either. And we told you earlier in the week about a report that the Seahawks coaching staff isn't too pleased with Christian Haynes himself. So, yes, I think we'll see the run game improve, but I don't know if it will ever be great at some point this year. That remains to be seen. But at the very least, be improved, Ian. I think you're onto something there. Dan the Man Miller with a $20 super chat writes in, with all these changes they have been doing, doesn't that mess with the chemistry if they just keep making moves? So Dan the Man, what I think of with your question, back in the day when I was playing NBA Live on the old Xbox, you had the big chemistry meter in franchise mode, where it didn't matter how good your team was. If you didn't have chemistry, you weren't going to win games. And that taught me a lot as I got older in life that, oh, yeah, that's very true. Look at the New York Jets right now. Great example, who the Seahawks obviously play on Sunday. But with that said, the chemistry is a very good point to bring up. But this team was down so bad a couple weeks ago before the bye week, with the games that they had lost, being under 500, looking kind of, on the outside. There was really nowhere to go but up. So while I understand the concern, we've seen improvement. We've seen this head in the right direction. That is a fair thing to bring up, but I don't think it's an issue because we've seen this team head in the right direction, Dan. But it's a very good question. Next question coming in from very tough. How confident are you in the Seahawks' chances to win the division? Hashtag Seahawks. Great question there, Laura. Good to see you on Monday. I feel pretty good about the Seahawks' chances of winning the division right now, the way things stack up. You can see, look at that. How beautiful is that? That updated playoff picture with the Seahawks holding not even the 4 seed. No, the 3 seed. If the playoffs began today. It's a tie with Arizona, but they have the tiebreaker because of the head-to-head. And they looked so good in that win against Arizona last week, specifically on defense, that you would have to think that when these two teams rematch next week, that Seattle is going to be favored in that game. And then you only have one more divisional game to go after that. The schedule isn't easy down the stretch. I mean, even playing a team like the Jets this week, as bad as they are, they're still very talented. That's not a given you're going to win this week. Your worst team left is probably the Bears, but we know they got a high-powered offensive attack, and you're on the road in that one. It's the schedule that's my concern for Seattle down the stretch. But they're playing better football. You look at the teams around them. I think the Cardinals had a wake-up call last week with what the Seahawks did to them. I think they kind of got exposed. The Rams didn't look great against the Eagles. The Niners seem to be out of it at this point. I think Seattle's in a good spot, but the schedule is going to be tough here in the coming weeks ahead. Will these Seahawks win the NFC West? Type Y for yes, in for no. Things are getting very interesting for Seattle in this division. It's our pinned comment today. Weigh in, let us know Y for yes, in for no, if you think they'll win the division or not. Let me tell you about our sponsor. That's our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the place to go for daily fantasy made easy. Here's how it works. You choose 2 or more players in any given category. Get the choice of more or less, whether you're talking fantasy points in football, rebounds in basketball, goals in hockey. This time of year, folks, we're big on the football front. As you got the postseason around the corner in both pro and college football, and PrizePicks wants to make sure you get in on the football action right now, folks. They are giving you $50 to spend for free when you play $5. You don't even have to win to get the money, folks. Go to PrizePicks.com/CLNS, promo code CLNS. This week, going with JSN, they have more than 4.5 receptions. I am going with Aaron Rodgers to have more than half a passing touchdown, but hopefully there's going to be some turnovers involved there too. You can play along with me, PrizePicks.com/CLNS, promo code CLNS. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. PrizePicks, proud partner of Seattle Seahawks Today. Glad to have them on board here on today's show. Trep writes in with a $2 super chat. Do you think we will draft a quarterback or target one? So I was talking to our newest employee here at Chat Sports just today about this, Trace Moose. You'll see him, I'm sure, in the very near future, folks, doing a great job with our Red Zone channel, among other things. And when you look at this quarterback class, you have to think about it this way, folks. At least smart GMs should be thinking about it this way. Yes, you have your top quarterbacks, but then you go into that next tier and you say to yourself, all right, where can I find value? All right. When I look at this draft, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are the only quarterbacks I would personally use a first-round pick on. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be more first-round quarterbacks. Could very well see Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers, maybe even Jalen Milroe, despite how bad he looked against Oklahoma this past week. Wasn't that hilarious? I could see all 5 of those guys going first round, but I only have first-round grades on 2 of them, okay? So with that said, let's answer part 1 of this. If I'm in position to potentially get Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, if I'm Seattle, then I go ahead and get Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. But in all likelihood, they probably won't be. So then you start to think about later. Well, I'm not going to use a first-round pick on those other 3 quarterbacks, so where could I potentially find value? Stay alert for round 3, and a guy by the name of Dillon Gabriel out of the University of Oregon. He's not ready to start day 1 by any stretch of the imagination, but put him behind Geno. Maybe you could find another Russell Wilson situation potentially. He is an incredible leader. He's very accurate, very good runner. He's had some injury concerns, but when I'm looking at value, I could see some value in a guy like potential in Gabriel in that 3rd round. That's what I'd be looking at that quarterback situation. That's how I would approach this draft as far as that goes. Dan the Man Miller writes in, how has Lucas been doing since he's been back? I like what I've seen from Abraham Lucas. And I think he's going to get better from here. His snap numbers are going to increase, and it's a significant upgrade from what we've seen from Gerald and Stone and George Fant and those other guys there. I think it's great for Seattle to have Abraham Lucas back, and it's not just him continuing to improve, but also continue to stay healthy. Hopefully, it's not a chronic knee issue for Abraham Lucas. Our guy Jeff writing in. Is Jaxon Smith-Njigba the Seahawks' new wide receiver 1? Well, statistically speaking, the answer is yes. He's leading the Seahawks in catches, yardage. He's got 4 touchdowns on the season, coming off 3 straight games with 70-plus receiving yards. He's played better than DK the last couple of weeks, even when DK's been healthy here. Jason's been great. But remember a couple of years ago when the Seahawks kind of had this wide receiver 1A and 1B thing with DK and Lockett, where there wasn't much separation between the two and they complemented each other? I think that's realistically what you would like to see with DK and JSN. Statistically speaking, yeah, JSN is your wide receiver 1 right now. But in a perfect world, you have a 1A, 1B. And that's what I think the Seahawks want out of these two. And I think you keep them both hopefully for a long time. DK has had a very good year. He was on pace for a career year before the injury here. So technically, yes, but DK's still right up there with him. And if DK hadn't gotten hurt, then we might be talking a different story. Which wide receiver do you believe is wide receiver 1 right now? Is it JSN or is it DK Metcalf? Type JSN for Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Type DK for Metcalf. Weigh in and let us know. A couple more for you. This one says, how many times do you think the Hawks D-line will get to Rodgers? Sack lunch, baby. So in this sack lunch, we're going with a PB&J. We're going with some barbecue chips, maybe a banana in there. Got to throw in a cookie. Always got to have a cookie in your sack lunch. Maybe a Capri Sun as well. Coop says brownie. I'm cookie over brownie personally. By the way, a brownie is not a brownie without nuts. It's got to have nuts in it. If it doesn't have nuts, it's a waste of your time. But anyways, with that said, Jets, some O-line concerns. The Hawks D-line, I think they can get after Rodgers a couple times. I think Leonard Williams could potentially build upon what he did last week and have a big day. If they can get after Rodgers, they win. Simple as that. You get pressure on Rodgers, you win. Jefferton writes in, is Scott Huff on the hot seat yet? O-line gets pushed back every run play, and Walker has to fight off multiple defenders in the backfield every time. Yeah, I think he is. I have not been impressed with the job Scott Huff has done coming over for Washington as the offensive line coach. I expected more, but let's see how the next few weeks goes. Before we fire anybody yet, let's see how the next few weeks goes. You've gotten some more guys like Lucas and others healthier here. Let's see what they do at that right guard position. Too early to call for anyone to be fired just yet, but let's see what Scott can come up with in the coming weeks before we say sayonara. Appreciate you joining us here on Seattle Seahawks Today. A lot of fun, always answering your mailbag questions. Subscribe now. Don't miss out our watch party coming up this weekend here on the channel. We will see you then.